potato, right?
So Cheryl, did you have some thoughts?
Oh, yeah. You don't want to know my thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, no, I've just heard this all before. It's very deja vu to me. And it sounds like, wow, let's run bomb 3. I don't know where you guys are going. And when Steve says he doesn't care for one plan over another, I go, shoot me now. Well, we know, Steve, what plan you want, and everybody on the board wants, so I don't know where you're going with that comment, but,
I'm just looking at cost benefit analysis and, I really don't care which one we go with. Whichever one is a better value for the,
how are you getting the 3 million, the 2.8 million, the 2.6 million?
based on what Steve is telling us here.
Do you want me to walk you, I'd be happy to walk you through.
Oh, no,
Yeah, no, as far as my comment goes, if they
It's
paint.
just arithmetic.
Yeah, if they paint it up and make it look pretty and it works, I'm okay with that. I'm just concerned, remember we said we're concerned about the people on fixed incomes and their ability to contribute. And so, like Robin just said, it's math, it's just simple math. I don't care if it's the green one or the blue one, it doesn't matter to me.
You know, I keep wondering how Tom Lloyd got that Lou grant for the community, federal grant, low income. Remember when Tom Lloyd went around asking people their income and he had so many to get that grant for the Lou? Or was it not Lou, maybe it was for
It's for the-
community center, adding on the downstairs.
Mr. Gardner made that information available and we've provided it to DEQ, and that's the basis on which we received the principal forgiveness.
Right, because there was low income.
But whether that is not sufficient for, the method is, DEQ said, well, okay, the Department of Commerce approved it for the state of Idaho, but the feds have a different set of criteria that they would require us to go through. And so we would have to spend the money to have an income survey done. And there is reason to believe that the result would not be beneficial. We would have just spent a bunch of money to find out that we can't.
Okay, as long as you're aware that they got,
We've done that.
Yeah.
right.
I'd
We
like
took advantage of that work, and I was appreciative that Mr. Gardner made that available, and it made it possible for us to be offered the $300K in principal forgiveness that we have formally been offered.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify real quick about that, about the 300,000 that was offered to us. So DEQ, if there's a list of projects and they choose to fund them, they have X amount of money. Well, if some of those projects say, well, we're not gonna be able to do it till next year, they come off the list and some of that money becomes available. So the last 2 years, we just happened to be in the sweet spot where a couple projects came off. We were in need of some grant funding. DEQ had some grant funding and they were kind enough to allocate it to us and not to some other project. And it was just a matter of timing and circumstances that we were in that spot and that we could have gotten the 300,000, in this case, in 2 consecutive times.
All right, but that's moot now.
Well, I know, but,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, I just want to clarify how that happens. It's a
We all know
window of
Steve.
opportunity that isn't necessarily available all the time.
Right.
And I did talk to rural development about that, because you can do an income survey. Part of what's difficult about Bayview is, it's not a municipality, right? You don't have a defined city limit. And so they use something called the ACS, American Community Survey. And that's especially for a lot of Idaho, that doesn't work very well. So rural development, you could do what's called an income survey, just like you guys did. But the rules for those have really changed. And John Lynn at Rural Development said, look, you're going to have to get such a high percentage of people returning that it's really unlikely that you're going to get any benefit from it. So I thought that was, I've never heard somebody say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and John Lynn's the go-to guy for USDA, right?
He's the most creative guy.
Yeah.
You're not recording that, are you?
Well, I'm sorry I brought up methods of doing things. We should have been talking about money.
Money's the key,
Is
right?
the Navy, are they
It's.
participating or?
As of right now, no,
says we
but I left that open
can
to,
add it to
About the park, anybody, I'm sorry, I
So-
brought up all this other stuff that I shouldn't even.
all actuality, the tank does
Yeah.
belong to the park,
I mean,
but Randall Butts, who I talked to, he'd basically tell me the lease was given to the Navy and they've washed themselves. Every time we read a lease, it always gives that person all reliability, so. The leaseholder. Yeah, leaseholder.
Well, I don't understand money, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, you have some good suggestions, and if we can find a way to lower the cost to make it work, we're all ears.
I had a couple of
So
thoughts
thank you.
about this visual.
Sure.
Your red X's, in terms of the Dromore storage tank, I'm not sure a red X actually belongs in the Project A. Maybe a different symbol. It doesn't,
Because it's unnecessary.
it's unnecessary and it's not applicable. But the differentials I was talking about, I always prefer the lowest cost. So the difference between this number and this number was 639,000. The difference between this number and this number, when you include the cost of the Dromore tank, was 622,000. That's what I was trying to say.
So, we've talked about a whole bunch of different things here, right? And there are, the district to move forward needs to come up with some sort of final, a preferred, preferred alternative. That alternative could be lots of different things. The first four were the ones that have been mentioned. E got added later as another way to maybe, to do something a little bit different. It turned out not to pencil in terms of cost, but the thought was maybe we can do something more cost effective. There are also all those other pieces that we had. The replacing old meters and upsizing lines, and especially where Lakes Highway District is doing their work, whether we want to include that in the project. I'm hearing that there's really no stomach for adding anything to the, and these numbers that we show are too high as it is. Am I hearing that right?
I definitely know the ratepayers are totally against the meters right now.
Well, you don't wanna go in there and start tearing it up, putting wire lines in, if they just laid the pavement down.
No, you don't.
Yeah, the idea is to do it before, because they're gonna do that in 2023?
2024, we
2024.
would need to be doing the work in the streets in 2023 to get advantage of the weather, the construction season.
So we could do that. You've got a 4-year window, 3-year window to get those pipelines in before you get paved. Otherwise, you end up waiting, however, you hate to cut pavement any less than 5 years, but really more like 10 years. You'd rather let it sit. So it's an opportunity to get in there beforehand. I'm not sure, it's an opportunity, I'm not sure how critical it is for water system operation. So that's something that the board will need to decide.
Well, we hired you guys to provide us with a facility plan. We paid for it a year ago.
Yep.
I got a string of emails and arm, as long as my arm, asking where the heck our plan is. We're here again, talking about the first chapter, in a sense. This was a great discussion today, and I think the information is good. The draft plan that you provided has a lot of good information in it. There's a ton of good information, but we still don't really have a plan. We're being, you're encouraging us, it appears, to make a decision about a project without very much context for seeing it big, in connection with the next 20 years. And this facility plan that we've asked you to produce is supposed to be a document that has a 20-year longevity, and we've it appears to me, kind of gotten eye-centered on this first chapter and the planning that we are still looking for appears to remain undone.
So I understand